saying Jinghui had a couple of interesting results in 2019. He finished third in the Jolly Realm tournament. Actually he was a finalist in the third Jolly Realm tournament. He also finished the same finalist in the 56th Jolly Realm tournament, which is a tournament that I imagine is for their own like system. And then he also participated in the World Cup 2023 representing China, which finished top 8. And we see the team on screen. It's a Sneasler Dragapult balance, very similar to the team that Adam from France recently used in the previous match, but with the main difference, I would say for now at least, is that the Dragapult is not a Terra Blast Ghost version as the last one. It's just a more standard Outrage Terra Dragon version, and also the Volcarona this time around is a more standard Cover Cloak Volcarona, not a Life Force we saw in the previous one for you guys. And we also have just a classic Sash Sneasler with Fake Out Protect, a Dozo with John and Fisher, Terra Ghost, and we also have an Electabuzz that is actually this time around, it's not Terra Ghost, it's actually Terra Water with Follow Me Taunt and the Eviolite, making it super bulky. This is a really common structure nowadays, with some differences. Sometimes you see Primarina on the Doso slot. Doso has been recently just rising in usage a lot on this balance teams because of its unaware ability and just being so bulky and so disruptive with the John Fisher combination.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite interesting in this format because if you told me a year ago, hey, you'll be playing a regulation where Electabuzz and Terra Blast Volcarona will be a very standard set, I wouldn't have really believed you, but now it's no surprise that we see this kind of composition. I think the Terra Water on Electabuzz is pretty interesting. Like you called out, there's a lot of relatively standard sets, but you already called out the Dragapult, which I thought was interesting. Most of the Dragapults now are Ghost Terra, but I remember at the beginning of the format, there's a lot of Terra Dragon. But the Terra Waters on Electabuzz, I haven't really seen too much of. You either see the Terra Flying to get rid of the ground weakness, or the Terra Ghost to not get disrupted by Fake Out or have a better matchup into Sneasler. So I think that's an interesting innovation. I'd be curious to see if that Terra will specifically come into play in this matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really interesting composition for sure. Very popular nowadays with some specific changes, as we already pointed out. The Cover Cloak on Volcarona is a nice item to have against all these Sneasler's, because Cover Cloak makes it immune to secondary effects like Sneasler's Dire Claw status conditions. You cannot get status from Dire Claw. You also are immune to flinching by Fake Out, so it's a nice way to kind of disrupt other teams that rely too much on Fake Out. And it's going to be interesting because we're going to have a pseudo mirror as we move on into Sebastian's team sheet. There is a common trend here. Both players are using Rillaboom, Dondozo, and Sneasler, plus a redirector with Eviolite. In this case, for Sebastian, is a Magmar pick. Magmar and Electabuzz really similar in what they can provide for a team, although Magmar has seen a little bit more of usage recently because it's able to use Will-O-Wisp to burn all these physical attackers that are really common in the format. And Magmar also obviously has a slightly stronger, well, actually quite stronger move in Overheat compared to Electabuzz Thunderbolt. And in this case, it is a standard Terra Ghost on the Magmar, unlike the Electabuzz that we just mentioned, which was Terra Water. We also see another dragon. In this case, it's not a Dragapult, it's a Baxcalibur. With the loaded dice is a way that a lot of players are trying to respond to this trend of Scale Shot Dragonites, since Baxcalibur also has the option to use this multi-hit moves with Scale Shot as well, on top of Icicle Spear and a priority Ice Shard. And a Life Orb Goldango standard with Terra Water. There's one difference in the Dondozos. I think Jinghui Dondozo is using Wave Crash, whereas Sebastian's Dondozo is using Liquidation.
Yeah, like you said, it's a mirror, and I don't want to call it too early, but I would want to guess that the Baxcalibur could be a big difference here over for Sebastian. The ability to use a multi-hit move like Scale Shot and Icicle Spear not only has the potential to outspeed fast Pokemon like Sneasler and Dragapult, but also be able to straight up knock out the Sneasler, which otherwise wouldn't be able to do because of the Focus Sash. So, especially with the redirection, these kind of standard teams typically rely on single target moves rather than the spread moves. And I think the only exception to that would be on Sebastian's team here with the Goldengo. But especially since that's the case over on Jinghui's end, I think the Magmar could come in pretty clutch to redirect those strong single target attacks, let the Baxcalibur set up with the Scale Shot, and potentially go through the rest of Jinghui's team if he's not too careful.
Yeah, and just to sum a little bit of Sebastian's previous accomplishments up, we do have a list here on screen to show you guys. He was the finalist on a special event in Peru, Lima special event in 2018. He also played in the same special event on his country in 2020 and finished top 16. He was part of the Peruvian team for the World Cup in 2021, finishing top 16, and the same placement on 2022, top 16 in the World Cup of VGC for his country, Peru. So it's a player obviously that knows how these tournaments work. He has been representing his country in a lot of previous editions. So I'm really excited to see how this matchup is going to turn.
Absolutely. Sebastián, really consistent player, as you can see, as well as Peru, just a consistent country in general. And we already talked so much about how strong China is. So I'm really excited to just get into this game, see how this matchup goes, how are the nuances of each team going to differ. And over here we see we see Sebastián lead with the Baxcalibur and the Sneasler, as Jinghui leads with the Sneasler Volcarona.
Yeah, there's a Baxcalibur and Sneasler against Sneasler Volcarona. Of course, both Sneaslers have the option to go for Fake Out, and both Baxcalibur and Volcarona have the option to go for a setup move. Baxcalibur can click Scout Shot to increase its speed and decrease its defenses. There is a Terra Ghost option in the Baxcalibur, and the Volcarona also on Jinghui's side cannot be Fake Out. So there's the option for both Fake Out users to not click Fake Out because of the way they can respond, as we do see a Dondoso switch in here actually.
Yes, we see Dondoso switching, potentially fearing for a close combat from the Sneasler on Jinghui's end, but Sebastián setting it up with coaching, so it'll ignore the stat boost over on Jinghui's end with the unaware, like the Volcarona is going for it with the Quiver Dance, but it will definitely appreciate the stat boost of its own through this coaching. So really good turn one from Sebastián.
Yeah, one quick correction from my side. The Sneasler from Sebastián's side does not have Fake It, actually. As you saw, it has Coaching, and the other move of preference here for Sebastián is Protect. So nice switch in there. Dondoso obviously is a great Pokemon on the physical side with a lot of, very high physical defense. And Volcarona does not have a way to hit it that much because it's not carrying something like Giga Drain, for example. So now it's +1 on the attack stat and the physical defense. So this is a very good opportunity for Dondoso to go for the offense if Sebastián wants to, or just click John because it has that hybrid option of just attacking if they want, or just go for John, as we do see Sneasler from Jinghui's side trying to go for a Direct Claw, and it gets the poison.
Yeah, super impactful poison for a Pokemon like Dondoso, who likes to stall out the game, maybe go for a slower pace. And Sneasler on Sebastián's end doubling down on the stat boost with a second coaching, but not doing that much damage to the Dondoso and Jinghui's end, not only due to the type matchup, but also because, again, the Dondoso on Jinghui's end is also unaware. So we have sort of a mirror here, but I would say, Jinghui's definitely advantage with the good poison roll on the Dire Claw.
Yeah, both Dondosos are going to play a really huge role here in this match because, as you already mentioned, they have unaware. So if you're trying to go for like a coaching strat, my unaware Dondoso is going to be just sitting on the field because you're not going to do that much damage with those boosts, since I'm not going to ignore them. As we do see a Terastallization from, I think this is Sebastián's Dondoso, which is a Terra Flying variant, and is going to try to probably be immune to the Fissure, I guess. It's probably one of the reasons why you Terastallize there, on top of obviously also resisting the close combat from Sneasler.
Yep, Jinghui protecting Dondoso, potentially being scared of the Dire Claw going into it, but actually is read by Sebastián going for Dire Claw into the Sneasler on Jinghui's end, rolling the Sleep, arguably the best status, as the Dondoso on Sebastián's end goes for the Fissure into the protecting Dondoso on Jinghui's end. So, Jinghui doing a great job protecting Dondoso from getting any kind of knockout or status this turn, but Sebastián definitely good punish in getting that Sleep on the Sneasler. If the Sneasler doesn't wake up the next turn, definitely going to be in range for potential liquidation and close combat double.
Yeah, that's the thing with Dozo. It's a really, really bulky Pokemon that, demands a lot of respect if you are using a lot of physical attackers. But unfortunately for Sebastian is on a timer because of this poison, as we do see this Niesler not being able to wake up and it's taking another Dire Claw. So this Dondoso from Jinghui side is going to go for a Wave Crash, not doing that much damage to the Doso. And Doso, because of the Terra Flying, is unable to get Fissure.
Ooh.
And there is a Fissure! The Doso getting the one only try on the Fissure, the one hit KO. It was the first try on the Fissure, Fissure being a move that only has 30% accuracy. But that's sometimes what you have to click when you have this kind of, mirrors, because Doso cannot hit other Dosos. But the Terra Flying on Sebastian's side is actually coming in clutch because it's immune to Fissure, whereas Jinchu's Dondoso was not.
Yeah, I thought it was quite curious that Sebastian would use Terra on a Dondozo that was already at half health, poisoned, really on a timer, but really making it worth it by living up to the name of one-hit KO, like you said, just getting that KO on the first hit of Fissure and really turning the matchup on its head. Now we have Sneasler on Jinghui's end, who still could sleep for one more turn, and then two other Pokemon that are healthy. But Sebastian has two other Pokemon in the back, and could very much just win by the Pokemon count, especially if the Sneasler doesn't wake up this turn.
Yeah, Sneasler already took 2 turns of sleep, and it could be a speed tie between both Sneaslers, given them both are holding the Focus Sash, so they're probably just one speed. As we do see the Dragapult, which obviously is going to outspeed Sneasler if it's trained to be at least neutral max speed, or it can even be Jolly. And it's going to go for an offensive Terastallization. At this point, Dondoso probably did his job for Sebastian. It's obviously going to go down from that Terra Dragon boosted Dragon Darts as Sneasler from Sebastian's side. Oh, actually, I was wrong. It didn't even KO from that range. That's huge.
And we see the close combat come out. Likely a speed tie between the two Sneaslers, as you mentioned, but Jinghui getting very lucky not only on the sweep, but also winning on that speed tie this turn. But however, Sebastian's Dondozo still lived through that very strong Dragon Darts coming out from the Dragapult and retaliated with a Yawn. So not getting a KO this turn on that Sneasler, but in return, making that Dragapult in a really uncomfortable situation. If there's two Pokemon in the back for Sebastian that can protect, there's a bit of a mind game here of do they both protect, or do they just read the Dragapult switching out and go for a more offensive turn? So, yeah, this next turn might be the turning point or deciding turn of this game.
Yeah, Dondozo for Sebastian's side, remember, had, I think, 2 coaching boosts on the defense. So that was why he survived from that low range of HP. But honestly, I was not expecting that, because Dragapult is usually a Pokemon that, although Dragon Dart is a weak move, only 50 base power, has the choice band items we can see on screen, and also the Terra Dragon just to increase that power even further. But Dondozo just proven to be a complete wall against physical attackers once it gets those coaching boosts. As we do see that Baxcalibur and Magmar are the last 2 Pokemon from Sebastian's side, and as you mentioned, Dragapult has to decide, hey, do I want to switch out here? And Sebastian can also take the opportunity to read into that and just go for a skill shot, which would allow the Baxcalibur to outspeed this Sneasler and the Dragapult in the upcoming turns, as we do see the Magmar going for a follow me, and this Sneasler is trying to go for a Dire Claw into that Magmar, and it does get the poison again.
Yep, big poison coming out from the Dire Claw here, but I would say maybe lucky for Sebastian that there's no paralysis, no risk of a follow me not going through in the following turn. Sebastian retaliates with a Scale Shot, getting a critical hit on the third hit, and maybe leading to a KO. Oh, and another critical hit after 5 hits.
That's amazing for Sebastian. Getting the Baxcalibur +1 is huge, and in this endgame, because as I said, Baxcalibur now probably, if it's trained in the in a speedy way, is going to be able to outspeed that Dragapult most likely. Although I think Adam and Baxcalibur probably does not outspeed Jolly Dragapult, so it's going to come down to how this trainers decided to train their Pokemon. As we do see, the Volcarona took so much damage from that skill shot, also getting 2 critical hits on top of 5 hits, and Magmar is able to protect Baxcalibur. So I think this endgame is looking really good for Sebastian's Baxcalibur just by being able to spam those attacks. But the Magmar is once again on a timer because it's poison.
Yep. So we see a good double protect, safe double protect on Jinghui's end. Sebastian cannot really punish this and just takes some poison damage on the Magmar. So relatively dead turn, but now I think Sebastian's actually the one who needs to make more of a decision. Does he go for the scale shot and miss the 10% miss chance in order to potentially accommodate a Dragapult that's trained particularly fast, or go for the Icicle Spear that has guaranteed KO potential on both of these Pokemon, but risks to a Dragapult being very fast. So, pretty interesting turn. Maybe they want to go for more on the Icicle Spear since they should have access to Magmar by the end of this turn. I guess maybe not, depending on which Pokemon Baxcalibur targets.
Yeah, and also keep in mind the Baxcalibur is going to get stronger if this Volcarona goes for a Heat Wave because of its ability Thermal Exchange, which increases its attack if it's hit by a fire move. So Volcarona probably doesn't want to give Baxcalibur an extra attack boost, as we do see Baxcalibur just deciding to go for an Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear cannot miss, unlike Skill Shot. It's guaranteed to hit at least, those 4 hits because of the loaded dice item. And Volcarona actually goes for a Quiver Dance. He doesn't want to get this Baxcalibur an attack boost, but we didn't see a Follow Me from the Magmar, so I wonder if this Magmar is just going to attack. And it's risky the Overheat because it can also miss, but thankfully for Sebastian, this Overheat does not miss this time around, as we do see the Volcarona going down, so that Quiver Dance went to waste.
Yeah, really good, solid player from Sebastian, recognizing exactly what you said, Paul, which is that the Volcarona has no really good way to hit the Baxcalibur, especially since the Terra is gone, so no access to that fairy move. So doesn't really need to go for the Follow Me, but prefer to just go for that KO onto that Volcarona after the Baxcalibur gets the KO onto that Sneasler. So here's the final Follow Me. We'll find out the speed order here, and we do get confirmation here that the Baxcalibur is faster than the Dragapult after a single speed boost. So even though Jinghui lost this one, is very important information, and would like to use that in the upcoming game.
Yeah, that was something that, of course, Sebastian knew. Like, it's something that if you train your Pokemon, if your Baxcalibur is Jolly or is Adamant. But this is something that for us, the casters and the viewers, you guys at home, is really important information also to know, because Baxcalibur is a Pokemon that has seen some usage lately, just to like a way to respond to all these strong dragons, right? Like, for example, Dragonite, Garchomp, and also Dragapult, which is honestly a really good pick for Sebastian. I think Baxcalibur played a really, really important role in this endgame. But I do want to mention that like the Dondoso interaction was huge for this match in my opinion, because even though the Dondoso from Sebastian's side was like around 50% health and poison, he still wanted to terastallize. He committed into that terastallization just to make sure that Dondoso is gonna get at least one or more tries on the fissure. And because he had the Terra Flying option, that was the way that he could guarantee that the other Dondoso was unable to click that fissure. But maybe the other Dondoso could have gone for a yawn just to put it to sleep, but luckily enough for him, he was able to connect that fissure in that first try, and I think that completely just changed the perception of the game that we had.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think as for us viewers, it's a bit confusing at first to see the Terra being used on the Dondozo at half health that's already poisoned. Like, it's, already, so low. Like, why would they want to commit their terastallization on a Pokemon that's already so weakened? But seeing how big of a threat Dondozo was, not only just from, like a typing perspective, there's just not that many options with the 4 that Sebastian Brent. So he just knew he had the connecting fissures. Terra Flying was the way he could do that because it prevented the fissure coming out from the Jinghui fissure. And with the Baxcalibur in the back, even though it didn't really look good for him in the beginning game, since the other 3 Pokemon just really didn't have tools into Baxcalibur, he was able to just run away with it at the sacrifice of his own Dondozo and his own Terra. So a really good macro game planning over from Sebastian's end, and I'm curious to see if we'll have similar plans coming into Game 2.
Yeah, that Dondozo just proved to be really valuable for Sebastian. Not only getting that fissure first try, but also surviving that Dragon Dart from like around 10% or even less. So I wonder if he understands that importance of the Dozo, tries to preserve it more. As we do see the game 2 beginning, there is a Baxcalibur lead this time around from Sebastian, and we do see a classic Sneasler Dragapult lead from Jinghui.
Yep, so I think the nuances between the Sneasler here is pretty important. So Jinghui's is the one that has poaching instead of fake out, and is able to threaten that fake out plus dragon move to maybe just even get a straight up KO on the Sneasler and do a lot of big damage to Baxcalibur. So I guess at one site, Sebastian is able to get a safe double protect off, since the other move over on Jinghui then is protect and not coaching, so there's not too much a punishment for a double protect. But we see a terrestrialization already being committed here. I believe this is going to be on Jinghui's end. Looks like it's the Sneasler going for the Ghost terrestrialization, so wanting to get a better matchup against the opposing Sneasler, not both based on the stab moves, but also being immune into the fake outs. But actually, this is on Sebastian's end. Going for a protect on the Baxcalibur, scared of the dragon move and the fighting moves that can come out from the Sneasler. We see the Sneasler go for a close combat into the opposing terrestrialized Sneasler, as the Dragon Pull over on Jinghui's end goes for a dragon move into the Baxcalibur, as Sebastian's Sneasler finally goes for a coaching to boost Baxcalibur's attack and defense, which is really, really good into the two Pokemon on Jinghui's end. However, without Sebastian being able to use terrestrialization anymore, the Baxcalibur is really, really vulnerable to both of the strong attacks that Jinghui has.
Yeah, I think what we saw there was an outrage being locked from Jinghui's Dragon Pull and hit into a Baxcalibur, because we didn't see any damage into these Sneasler, so it was not a Dragon Dart. But as you said, the terrestrialization has already been committed, and it was not on the Baxcalibur, so Baxcalibur now is vulnerable of being hit by both a close combat and a potential outrage coming from that Dragon Pull. And even though Baxcalibur got the +1 defense, it's still being threatened by two Mons to hit it super effectively and outspeed them, as we do see the Terra Stellar coming out from this Sneasler, just increasing the power of that close combat, probably making sure that it just gets a KO even through that +1 defense boost from the Baxcalibur. But it was actually not an outrage, it was actually a U-turn that was picked from Jinghui's side into that Baxcalibur. And I do imagine that if you're going for a Terra Stellar here, you are clicking close combat into that Baxcalibur just to ensure it gets the knockout through that defense boost.
Absolutely. Sebastian really invested a lot of resources by protecting, terrestrializing, and using coaching that turn. So it makes sense for Jinghui wanting to double into that slot and definitely get the KO, which he does thanks to the double up and using the terrestrialization. So a really explosive turn from both players in the first two turns. And yeah, I guess contrary to that, we now see a Dondozo face-off. And despite the big lead that Jinghui just got on the second turn, things could flip pretty quickly depending on some Dire Claw and Fissure rolls.
Yeah, and both Sneasler decided to go for their respective terrestrializations. Although the Sneasler on Sebastian's side has a more defensive Terra, the Jinghui Sneasler has the option to go for another Terra Stellar boosted attack. It was a Dire Claw into the Sneasler from Sebastian's side, which decides to go for a coaching. Remember that the coaching boost is not going to matter into the other Dondozo, but it's probably going to matter into the other Pokemon, right? So just Sebastian say like, okay, I'm going to try to play an endgame where maybe my Dondozo is able to wall all your physical attackers with those defense boosts, and yeah, you're gonna try to put me to sleep, but that's okay. Eventually I'm gonna wake up, and it's probably gonna be a matter of Fissure spam between these two doses if the game comes out into that mirror.
Yep, well, we see Jinghui's Dondozo Protect being scared of a Dire Claw or a Fissure coming out from the opposing team, and we see a good roll of Poison onto Sneasler, so definitely putting on timer, might be KO'd at the end of this turn, but we see Sebastian might be going for their luck this turn, getting the Sleep roll. Pretty impactful here, especially depending on what the Dondozo on the opposing side goes for, but goes for the Fissure, being correctly protected by Jinghui, calling out the fact that Sebastian may risk that Sleep in order to go for the Fissure to connect on Jinghui's Dondozo, but Jinghui doesn't fall for it. Thanks to the Sleep, the Poison roll on the Dire Claw onto Sebastian Sneasler. Sneasler goes down, and quickly we see a 4v2, and the Dondozo is asleep on Sebastian's end thanks to the yawn, and it's starting to look like curtains over for Sebastian.
Yeah, I think, if you want one Pokemon to be on your side for an endgame like this, it definitely is Dondozo, I think. Like, even though it's asleep, eventually it's going to wake up, and it's still with the +1 defense and +1 attack that Sneasler got with the coaching support on a previous turn. So I think obviously being asleep is not great, but you can still try to overcome that by just waking up eventually, as we do see Magmar going for a burn into the Dondozo. But I wonder how impactful this burn is going to be in the long run, because at the end of the day, Dondozo cannot hit each other, so it's going to be a matter of Fissures at this point, as we do see also the Dragon Pull coming on for free here.
Yep, and Jinghui going for that fissure for the first time, not connecting here, and realizing, yeah, the only real, I guess, most impactful way to get rid of the Dondozo is to go for fissure. Dondozo not doing too much other than that, so may just keep going, but the Magmar goes for the follow me, hoping to redirect any strong attacks coming out from the choice banded Dragapult. As the Dragapult goes for the Phantom Force, disappearing for this turn, not taking any damage or yawns or fissures. As the Dondozo over on Jinghui's end, going for the fissure. And this is the first time we actually noticed the speed tie between the Dondozos, since the Dondozo on Sebastian's end saw the sleep happening for the first time before Jinghui's Dondozo in the previous turn. So a lot of information being revealed here.
Yeah, that's the second attempt for a fissure, this time into the Magmar. I think from Sebastian's perspective, you just have to hope that, like, you get, eventually awake and try to spam a yawn into this other Dondozo you can protect. That way you can try to alleviate the fissure pressure a little bit. But, from Jinghui's perspective, your Dondozo's burn, and that's the third turn, I think, that the Sebastian's Dondozo stays asleep. Even with their burn, it's not able, even with a critical hit, it's not able to KO that 50%-ish Magmar. So I think this is going to be, a matter of, can I wake up, and does Dondozo have enough raw power to break through this? The problem actually is that Dondozo on Jinsui's side is burned, so you cannot put it to sleep anymore. And that's, a hard commitment that probably Sebastian had to decide at some point. Like, I prefer this thing burn. Eventually, it's just gonna, cancel out the leftovers recovery, and if I can put my Dondozo in a position that I can deal with everything else, and I can force an endgame Dondozo against Dondozo, maybe I can have a chance of winning. But for now, the only thing we know is that Jinghui's had all his team awake, even not awake, available, because 4 Pokemon are there, and Dragapult, though, is really powerful and it's logged into Phantom Force. You still have to find a way you break through this Dondozo.
Absolutely. And realizing that the Dondozo is really important over on Jinghui's end, switching out for the Volcarona, but now the Volcarona is definitely vulnerable to a potential fissure coming out from Dondozo. That's definitely waking up this turn. And we see what the Dondozo goes for. It goes for the fissure, and it connects onto the Volcarona. Notably, the only Pokemon that's fully healthy over on Jinghui's end, so big risk for Jinghui that didn't pay off. And now we have a Sneasler that's asleep and a Dondozo that is burned. So, depending on how many more fissures this Dondozo can connect, we may see the comeback coming out from Sebastian's end, Paul.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. When you have Dondozo with Fissure in this kind of endgame, and also with a +1 defense and attack, you probably still have a decent chance of winning this endgame. And imagine if that Fissure would have connected into the Dondozo. I think that would have been probably even worse for Jinghui to lose its only way of beating this Dondozo, because the Volcarona, there is another Fissure. I think Sebastian's Dondozo has connected the three fissures he attempted to connect, like in considering game 1 and game 2. That's probably I don't know the math. Someone probably in the chat can tell us what's the math of connecting 3 fissures in a row, but that's something I haven't seen before personally.
That was incredible. And also, notably, the Sebastian's Dondozo won the speed tie as well. So if Jinghui's Dondozo had moved first, maybe it could have connected to Yawn, maybe it could have connected to Fissure. But no, Sebastian's went first and also connected the Fissure. So now we have a Sneasler that's asleep, may not be able to make it through depending on how many turns it takes for it to wake up. And it doesn't even need to wake up, it's going to go straight down. So now the Dondozo over on Sebastian's end, taking 3 KOs in this turn, despite being the last Pokemon still healthy on Sebastian's end. And in this one-on-one, I don't know, I think you have to go for more fissures. You can't afford to go for liquidation.
At this point, honestly, the only thing that probably Jinghui can hope that wins in the game is a Phantom Force crit. And probably even, I don't know if 1 crit is going to be enough. We did see that Phantom Force this time around did around 25%, but that's a +1 defense though. So if you crit, you're going to ignore that +1 defense, and you're also going to do 50% more. So I don't know if 1 crit is going to be enough, but that's your only hope. Remember, guys, that Phantom Force breaks or protects, so there is no way for this Dondozo to protect here. So it's going to come down to whether or not you get the crit and how much that crit is doing. But I actually think Dragapult went to sleep in the void. Yeah, I think that's what happened.
It will come back down. There's a bit of a glitch in the game, I believe, that it doesn't show the avatar after it falls asleep from the yawn. But now, yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. The liquidation's a pretty small chip, but actually we see the forfeit being locked in by Jinghui, knowing that the